MSNBC prepping for a big old spinoff. I'll tell you, this is what ABC is going to have to do. So Bob Iger's getting the note from Brendan Carr, and he's probably looking at that and going, well, I wanted to get rid of these networks anyway. ABC News, bye-bye, bye-bye. I mean, it's going to be very, very, very tough, I think, for that network going forward, just like it's very, very tough for one NBC News. Look at the pay cuts. Joy Reid is looking at, she's making $3 million apparently per reports, which is like 3 million too many. So maybe she'll have to take a cut, just like Rachel Maddow went from 30 down to 25. Oh, they got all kinds of change over there, I guess. The question is, will Joy be able to capture some of it? Joy, remember Joy, who was just so delighted that it was black people going after Donald Trump with all of those different cases? I mean, I actually thought it kind of looked a little bit conspicuous. Just saying. Here's Joy Reid back in the day.
For me, there is something wonderfully poetic about the fact that despite the fact that even if convicted, he's not going to go to prison, the first person to actually criminally prosecute Donald Trump is a black Harvard grad, the very kind of person that his former staff, the people who worked for him, Stephen Miller, et cetera, want to never be at Harvard Law School. But he was. And he came out and graduated. He's prosecuting you, Donald. And a black woman is doing that same exact thing in Georgia. And a black woman forced you to pay a $175 million fine that's out now also in question because the people who put it up, that might not be legit. Donald Trump is being held to account by the very multicultural, multiracial democracy that he's trying to dismantle. And for me, there's something poetic and actually wonderful about that. It says something good about our country that we're still capable of having that happen. Go DEI. My DEIs.
Oh, I apologize for clipping off the end of that. She said, go DEI. My DEIs. I mean, there's something poetic. You really want to be that divisive, huh? You really want to just reduce everything to race? Yes, the answer is yes. That is all she wants to do. So I think Joy is probably on thin ice. They're saying, okay, you take this pay cut or you lose your show. You'll lose your job. Again, I go back to why was everybody so worried about Donald Trump? It had nothing to do with him being Hitler and everything to do with their own selfish actions. They were all very much aware that they would make less money when Donald Trump came in. I mean, this woman is so crazy that she actually suggested in her little TikTok thing, this is it's highly irresponsible, just like Whoopi saying, well, he deserved it because some of his rhetoric, he brings this on himself. Joy Behar suggested the assassination attempt might be fake, might have been staged. I mean, this woman needs to be fired for the sake of humanity. Thank you very much. And yes, she'll get a pay cut, but I'm telling you, it should be a whole lot more. Spinco. When MSNBC has to stand on its own 2 feet and actually earn a dime because it doesn't have Comcast there to bail it out every other turn, that's going to be interesting to see. Here, take a look.
We still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet, whether he was hit by glass fragments, whether he was hit by shrapnel. We don't have those details. We actually have no details from his physician, even though this man is still a Secret Service protected and presidential candidate. We knew almost nothing. Why? Why don't we know that much? We know that 3 people were shot. 1 person, unfortunately, was killed at the rally. We don't know where they were sitting or standing relative to him. We don't know why, for 9 full seconds, Donald Trump was allowed to stand back up during an active shooter situation, even though they, at that point, had said the shooter was down. How would they have known if there were more shooters or not? Nobody knew that there could have been 5 shooters for all they knew. Yet they allowed him to stand up in the middle of that, crisis and pose for a photo and fist pump the air so he could get the iconic photo. And then they allowed him to stand up again outside of the SUV instead of just shoving him into the SUV. That seems really unusual. What is the actual injury to Donald Trump's ear that's under that bandage? Shouldn't we know that by now? It's weird. And there doesn't seem to be a
I'll tell you, this
whole
woman
lot.
is weird. So I don't even know if I played that back at the time because I was so horrified by that. And I wanted to be thoughtful about not encouraging any kind of insanity and crazy speech, etc. But I definitely watched it and was pretty struck. And I just thought it was important to show you now because she is so far out in crazy town land and her network is looking at, well, what do we do? Does she stay? Does she go? Who else stays and goes? Because the whole lot of them were trying to outdo each other with their conspiracies. And I will say this about Rachel Maddow. There's no conspiracy that she hasn't met that she just doesn't love. And she goes down these crazy liberal rabbit holes. Russia, 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 for example. But there's like actually some sophistication to it. I mean, I kid you not. Like I'd watch and I was like, damn. She used to have a show on right after me. And so I'd find myself like I'd go to the green room and, you know, maybe I'd be changing my clothes or something afterwards or taking off my makeup, some of it, before I left the studio. And I'd catch part of her show on one of the competition monitors. And I'm like, damn, like if I were to say those things, ever say those things, I can't even imagine. Like that would be crazy, 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 right? But somehow, because she's on the left, she's on the other side, she gets to go with this really wackadoo scenario. I will say though, they were clever. Like, I mean, they were crazy, but clever. This one, on the other hand, she's got no cleverness. There's no sophistication. There's no savoir-faire. There's no je ne sais quoi. There's no nothing other than a really bad-looking haircut. She needs to go, okay? That is my opinion. She is not doing journalists any kind of favor whatsoever. But there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. I mean, for goodness sakes, what's his name that tried to tell us that it was the best Joe Biden he had ever seen? You know who I'm talking about, one Joe Scarborough. I mean, they just lie to us. Or I'll never forget the day that Morning Joe show started to go on about the economy and how it was all in people's heads. Because, you know, wages are up. Okay, you idiots, real wages aren't up. Real wages, called adjusted for inflation, because inflation is through the roof. Real wages are way down. And that's why people feel this pain. Don't try and sit there and tell us to think otherwise. They wanted us to think the economy was great because then maybe the economy could be great. It's actually a whole sort of economic school of thought that when you have positive energy out there, it tends to influence how people feel, and then you get more positive energy. But you weren't getting any positive energy from the likes of Kamala or Biden, for that matter. No way, no how. Like, it was just, I mean, you just looked at Biden and thought, I don't know if he's going to make it. And then you looked at Kamala and you said, she's definitely not going to make it. And there's not a lot upstairs either. And she can't even have a conversation on the economy, for that matter. But this is great because MSNBC is now like maybe trying to bring in new faces and new people. So they brought on this woman who's a columnist at the Financial Times in London, Gillian Tett. And Gillian, she's got her finger on the pulse of the business community. Anyone who covers business gets it, right? Like, you understand when markets go up or markets go down. It's pretty simple. You understand the opportunity or lack thereof. And so they bring her on to Morning Joe, and this is hysterical. Like, they're like setting her up. Oh, you know, the global business community, what do they really think? Because they can't be that happy, right, with all this uncertainty. And watch the answer she gives.
What is your sense of what not just American CEOs, but the world is bracing for, is prepared for, is expecting from a second?
Interesting choice of word, bracing for.
Term.
Well, here's what we do know. We do know that Donald Trump's election has unleashed astonishing animal spirits. And by animal spirits, I'm referring to the economist John Maynard Keynes, who was from King's College, Cambridge, who argued that when people start to feel wildly optimistic and confident, that basically causes them to spend more, invest more, hire more, and you get this self-fulfilling cycle of growth. And right now, everyone can sense that there's an extraordinary explosion of animal spirits in America in relation to the economy, and particularly relative to all the other major trading partners like Europe or Asia right now. So the CEOs are acting like rational business people, saying, we want to be part of that. We want to be part of this growth story.
Do you hear the coming out of the peanut gallery? I think one Mika Brzezinski over on the side there. And look at the expression on these faces, right? Willie's like, oh my God, I can't believe she just said that. The CEOs are acting like rational people. They're actually excited about Donald Trump. So you feel the tenor of the room just change. Willie kind of sits up, looks sideways. You get a coming from Mika. And all of a sudden, Jillian starts to try to sort of massage her message a little bit because she sees that this is falling on deaf ears. Watch the rest.
However, that's what
Because of course you got to have a however when everybody's going,
do know. What we don't know is what on earth is going to unfold in January, because the reality is that what Trump has actually said about the economy is very contradictory. And the question right now is, how is anyone going to actually resolve those contradictions?
I actually think she was just trying to cover herself because she could read the room and everybody around her actually flipped out. He actually hasn't been that contradictory. He's actually been very consistent, like from 30 years ago consistent. He was going on Oprah back when Oprah liked him. He was going on Larry King back when CNN liked him and saying the same thing he's saying now, which is that we can't keep having every other country eat our lunch. We need to look at things like tariffs. We need to be more intelligent with our financial planning and our tax structure, et cetera, et cetera. And he's right. So MSNBC going into Spinco, ABC, mark my words, is going to look very, very different. Very different by this time next year. I tend to be right on these things, for better or for worse. I just call it like I see it. Really and truly. Like, I'm just calling it like I see it. And Bob Iger is not a dumb man. He may be liberal, but he's not entirely dumb. And his responsibility is to maximize shareholder value. And you're not maximizing shareholder value with Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and the other one, Georgie Pants, right? Like, that is not good for shareholders. Granted, it's a very small part of the business, but do you need the headache? They're already figuring out. They got rid of that Lesbian Witch series, right? The Coven of Lesbian Witches, the Star Wars spinoff that was costing them $29 million an episode. They finally figured out that wasn't such a good allocation of capital because nobody wanted to see it. Yeah, you know what? You guys actually have to create things that people want to see. And on the news side, that people trust. And no one trusts you. No one at all.